Hey everybody, ronarray here, and endgame farm is changing drastically in 3.28. Some older things are going away, and new Mirage mechanic together with a set of new promising Scarabs are looking decent as well. So in this video, I want to talk about the most promising farms for 3.28, discuss alternatives to Strongboxes, Giga Blight's nerf, and what can replace it. I have also invited an expert, Snap, a long-time PoE player, juiced farmer, and a member of Empyrean Party, who also did a very detailed video about ground loot in PoE, so check it out if you haven't seen that. It will be very interesting to hear his opinion as well about the future of farming in 3.28. Hope this discussion will help you to decide what you can farm for profit as well, and let's go. So first, let's quickly talk about the changes. The biggest one is the removal of tier 17 maps. GG are going to keep them in the form of nightmare maps. However, they want us to farm that only for fragments now, just in case they also nerfed barrels in Fortress map, which been responsible for a big chunk of the loot when you've been farming tier 17s. After such drastic changes, I don't really think that new nightmare maps will be good for basic farm anymore, so most of them will be used mostly for fragments now, or maybe for some niche strategies, and it seems that Snap had a similar opinion as well.
I think it would be a real tragedy if somehow T17s are still the best thing to be farming. The thing to mention about T17s is that because the layouts are so big, they benefit from stuff like all flames a lot that, require a lot of spawn points. And so I really hope that, there isn't something that would make T17s or nightmare maps rather, the meta. I really do hope they have been nerfed enough to not make it so that you're farming them.
GG also eliminated Giga Blight with classical triple tap nerfs. They lowered bonus rewards granted by Blight Scarabs on Invigoration. Blight Scarabs of Lumin no longer adds additional non-boss waves of monsters to each Blight portal, and Blight Scarab of the Blight Heart no longer doubles the number of waves. And in my opinion, it's not really looking good for Blight Bros anymore. However, some people still think that it can still be used in some way to just focus farm bosses, but I doubt that it will be too efficient compared to other strategies that we are getting in 3.28 and especially to Mirage strategies. And just to confirm, let's hear another opinion about that.
Blight for blue monsters is pretty dead. That's been nerfed in 6 different ways. I do think if you're doing a Titanic based strategy, you can still use Blight to spawn a bunch of bosses because it's very low Atlas investment on the tree. I think it's you click 1 or 2 Blight wheels and then you click the wheel at the top that spawns bosses. And it's just a very good way to inject bosses into your map. But I think for all other intents and purposes, I think it's completely dead. It got nerfed the 5-prong nerf hammer. I think it's totally dead.
So what now? Will there be anything to replace Giga Blight? What farm is going to be easy and comfortable? Let's discuss that. At the time, there are 2 potential options to replace Blight and be hard but very profitable in the end. First is obvious, and it is Breach Hive farm. We have a new Scarab, which is looking absolutely amazing. It is Breach Scarab of Splintering, and it's now renamed to Breach Scarab of Incense Swarm. It's going to give us health, skills and area instead enrage the hive, increasing the difficulty and reward of subsequent waves. It's going to make your hive significantly more difficult, but it's also going to give you more rewards. On top of that, we also have all Breach Scarabs have been reworked, and Breach Scarab has been renamed to Breach Scarab of the Hive, and area will now contain the hive. That way, if you will combine those 2 Scarabs, you will be able to force the hive into every map, and all waves when you're progressing it are going to be more difficult and provide more rewards. It's looking very promising, and I believe that loot is going to be very nice for it. We also have a new Expedition Scarab. So, introducing the Expedition Scarab of Infusion, which makes logbooks dropped in areas always have dropped with 4 implicit modifiers, and cause Expedition monsters to gain increased difficulty and rewards for each remnant detonated. So, as you can see, it's kinda similar, you're getting difficulty and rewards from Expedition. And potentially, it can also take the place of Giga Blight. Expedition always been a very niche farm due to variety of modifiers and difficulty in general, so I'm absolutely sure that Breach is going to be much more popular as an option because many builds will be able to farm Breach easier than Expedition. But in terms of potential, I really want to believe in the Expedition there, because it would be a pretty refreshing to see that mechanic on top, but Snap's opinion right here is much closer to Earth in that case.
I think more people are going to be eyeballing the Breach Scarab, the Breach Hive that has increasing rewards per wave. I think that's going to be the thing that people are trying to replace Blight with, but maybe the Expedition one is good. We're just going to obviously have to go and test it.
So after that, I'm absolutely sure that Breach Hive farming is going to be one of the best things, and maybe Expedition will be not horrible as well. However, 3.28 is mostly Mirage League. So best types of farm will be focused around Mirage mechanic itself. So far, we still don't know how Mirage is going to work with a Breach Hive, so is it going to double it and you will get double Breach Hive, or you will not? However, there's at least a few mechanics that have been very strong before and been one of the best farms in the previous leagues, which are going to work with Mirage pretty well. One of them is the containment strategy for Strongboxes, which always been pretty profitable if a little random in some particular moments. And it seems like containment is going to work very good with Mirage itself. So we can expect it to stay at the top, and maybe it even will be a best farm again. However, there have been a small change in the patch notes about containment. That little line, the efficacy of the ambush Scarab of Discernment has been reduced. And that Scarab is mostly giving you like variety of Strongboxes, so regular ones are going to appear more often. It's not really a big damaging change, however it should affect the profit, and it should go at least a little lower. On the other hand, from the basic Scarab, which is providing Strongboxes, you're now going to get +1 Strongbox, which is pretty nice and should be a little upside compared. However, I believe for containment strategies, additional Strongbox is not going to play that big overall, because you already have a lot of Strongboxes in your maps. So the big question is how Ambush Scarab of Discernment is going to affect the whole strategy, but it's still going to be very profitable, especially because of the Mirage interaction. And another mechanic that should work very good with Mirage is surprisingly Ritual. So first off, Ritual got buffed pretty great in 3.28 with Ritual Scarab of Selectiveness. It will now allow for rerolling 2 additional times instead of 1 additional time, which should be very comfortable for Ritual strategies. And on top of that, GG also confirmed in one of the podcasts that Mirage is going to practically spawn 1 big ritual in the Mirage part, which is going to provide the rewards in the same way like 4 normal rituals. So practically, if you're running them up with a ritual and Mirage, you will be able to get 8 rituals reward, or at least that's how it looks like at the moment. If that's true, I believe that ritual is going to be very good farming strategy. First of all, because it's very easy, and second, because you will be able to heavily benefit from Mirage. If it's not going to be too popular, and a lot of people will go for containment instead, or even for Breach, I believe that Ritual will be a good thing to try out in that case, especially if it will cost less, because not a lot of people are farming Ritual in general, so it could be a nice sleeping farm in the same way like Expedition if you can handle the mods. So one asked about 3 farms that I could predict are going to be great, and one of the best ones at the 3.28 league, I believe it's going to be Containment, it's going to be Breach, and the last one, I really want to believe in Ritual or some variations of Legion, especially early on, because it can provide a pretty nice rewards at the moment. Let's hear what Snap can say about this.
I think that's a very difficult question. I think it could potentially be the Breach Hives with the new Scarab with the increasing difficulty and rewards. I do think Containment is going to be extremely powerful. And then I guess the third one I would say would probably be some sort of All Flame with Propagation, or I think Kolonak is also still probably going to be pretty good as well.
So I think it's a pretty solid opinion as well. I'm not really farming All Flames that often myself, but maybe some of them are going to work pretty good, especially together with the Mirage mechanic, especially if Snap thinks so. But as you can see, we both emphasizing Containment, which is absolutely going to be amazing, together with a Breach farm, which is much more questionable at the moment, but still looking good enough to over-focus on it, even if the last one could differ. And I'm absolutely sure that initially a lot of players will just focus on farming containment because it's been tried and true strategies that already been working pretty good in the previous leagues. The only big downside for containment that it could be pretty expensive all over again because Scarabs will cost a lot. And that's pretty much the moment when I think some other strategies will come up and going to work up pretty good. And there's also another thing that is going to work very nice with the Mirage mechanic.
I think Mirage maps are going to change the meta a lot. There's a lot of strategies that benefit a lot from altars, and so if you have a fully Mirage map and you hit a good altar, you're going to have way more of your map that's going to benefit from that altar, and that's, I think, very exciting.
And I really think that it's a pretty good catch. So early game, for example, if you're going to roll Exarch with basic Chaos Shrine, which is just dropping Chaos Orbs for you, I think it can provide much more chaos than before, just because of the Mirage, because you're going to kill much more monsters with that Shrine effect. And later on in the game, you will be able to get additional quantity, for example, for yourself. Or for example, if you will roll Divine Shrine from Ether, you'll get significantly more Divines. I believe that going for Exarch early on and for Ether later on is probably going to be the main way again, but in general, aiming for those shrines is going to be a very nice way to make currency both early and just boost your maps in general later on. And another question is ground loot. GG been lowering the ground loot in Path of Exile at least for some time. However, it seems like that trend kinda changed at the moment. And it also seems that GG are trying to buff ground loot at least slightly. Such changes as Astrolab, for example, which can add mods to maps, should help with that. But will it be enough?
From everything I've seen so far, it didn't seem that crazy impactful for ground loot, that is. I mean, if you put one modifier like Quant on your map, it can be a pretty big it could be a pretty big change, but I'm kind of reserving judgment because there are so many changes in regards to the core game and Mirage and all that thing. It's really tough to predict how it'll feel in the end game. So I'm kind of just holding my breath and seeing how the changes are going to shake out.
Adding my own 2 cents to it, I can also say that maybe it will stack pretty nice for quantity bonuses from altars, for example, and shrines when you're practically just running through your whole map and then doing Mirage on top of that. So I really hope that it will improve the ground loot as well. Or at least going to improve the loot from additional mechanics such as Breach or Expedition, as we already discussed before. On top of all of that, GG also changed the Kingsmarch, which been a very important part of generating currency for multiple leagues, right starting from the settlers. And people been utilizing Kingsmarch non-stop for additional currency because mirror shards been provided by your shipping, and mappers been bringing a lot of currency for you too. So a lot of strategies been also focusing on getting gold pretty fast and selling items for the dust as well. Since GG currently swapped, right now you will need to focus on ore in your maps, and I believe it will be a very nice addition to get some ore here and there. And ore is probably going to end up in your atlases much more often than before. I believe that even chain shipping is still probably going to be pretty popular if it still can provide at least some mirror shards here and there. However, Snap, for example, has a little different opinion.
I think for shipping, I think it really just depends on how good the new ports are. I think if, they got nerfed a little bit and the rewards shifted around, I think only people that are specializing in doing Kingsmarch will engage with the shipping, especially if the mirror shard drop rate gets nerfed. As for the mappers, I think because the mappers are still kind of free, I think most people are probably still going to engage with mappers. They do generate you a lot of loot. They're very free. I still think mappers are going to be pretty mandatory.
Another pretty much big question. Will we be able to combine memory maps together with Mirage maps, or Mirage maps are just going to work on normal tier 16s? So testing that and see if memory maps are going to replace all tier 17 is going to be a very interesting thing, because otherwise tier 16 are going to dominate, because Mirage is looking absolutely mandatory for the current approach to farming. And I think at least in 3.28, most of the farming strategies will be built around the Mirage. And it also leads us to questions with additional mechanics, such as, for example, Delve. I believe that Delve prices will be pretty high that league, and maybe Delve will be a decent farm at least earlier. But when the league is going to progress, I believe that most profitable farms are going to focus on Mirage instead, and Delve is probably going to fall off. And if there are going to be some particular interactions of mechanics, such as like a ritual buff, or if we will be able to utilize the Mirage part for something like Harvest, those mechanics are going to come up on top too. Most of that is right now speculation, and I believe that we will have much more information when we will practically test all the mechanics, and especially Mirage mechanics themselves. So let me know in the comments, what are you going to farm in 3.28, and what do you think is going to be very profitable, at least for you early in the league. I also wanted to say thank you for Snap to helping me out with doing that video and providing some part of his opinions. It's definitely been very insightful and helpful. And thank you very much all of you for watching as well, and see you next time. ronarray out.